passe super, l'artiste, super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De er i semifinale igjen!
At the 2008 Olympics, a young national team substitute burst onto the world stage. In the group stage against Russia, Denmark was awarded a free throw in the last second, with the score tied 24-24. Only an impossible screwball would secure the victory, and that's precisely what Mikken Hansen delivered. The goal marked the beginning of Hansen's illustrious career. In 2024, an old veteran stepped up to save his team with the score 31-30 in the final of the Champions League, which he has never won. The ball was in his hands, and only an impossible screwball would allow Aalborg to continue in the final, send it to extra time, and potentially win him his first ever Champions League. This time the ball flew over the wall, past the goalkeeper, and smashed the crossbar. Thus marks the end of Mikken Hansen's illustrious and incredible club career, and it comes with defeat. But man, did he do it in style. Alex Kulash here, joined by Chris O'Reilly. Welcome to the Unformed Handball Hour. What a Final Four weekend we witnessed.
What a final to the Final Four weekend we witnessed, I would say, Alex. I mean, there are some people, I think, who get a little bit spoilt by Final Fours and expect every single game to go into extra time and penalties. That was not the case for the games this weekend, but let us not let that detract from what was indeed a great weekend, with a surprise and very impressive semi-final result from one team in Aalborg and a brilliant final. And I'm sure we're going to get into just how high the quality of the final was. But I like that that's how you started this show, because he had an opportunity at the buzzer at halftime and at the end of the game. I set it up both times, mentioning that game against Russia, hoping beyond hope that it would be the perfect commentary moment. Instead, it was a bit of an anti-climax in a way, but it, very fitting for the man to go out on his sword that way. And we get into that final few seconds, the final 12 seconds of the match at some point, because, to this day, Tuesday evening, as we record, I still don't really understand what happened there.
Absolutely. In our preview podcast, Chris, I asked the question, about Hansen's legacy, how much it means to win this. You pointed out, okay, he's probably not going to have as big of a role. That was different. For sure. He definitely had a big role.
Yeah.
And you said something along the lines of, if he comes out with 2 goals, 2 games of 10 goal performances, like we saw in the World Championship, then it would really, it would count. Do you think Hansen's performance in this Final Four counts towards his legacy?
Yes, absolutely. Even without winning the title. And I think that was the crux of the question, was about winning the title. That was always going to be really difficult. Turns out they got really damn close to it. But I was highly impressed. I mean, I haven't seen him run in about 5 years. I think it was early in the Barca game, or even in the semi-final, where he went on this like marauding cross-court run, a bit like Gietzel, or anyone with legs these days. And I'm like, wow, he can still do it. Not quite at the same speed as the others, but he's still doing it. And I really enjoyed it. He didn't shy away from the challenge, didn't shy away from the responsibility, particularly in that semi-final, like stepping up with some big goals. His penalty taking was a pure masterclass. Besides the first one. And that's what I enjoyed most about it. He missed the first penalty of the weekend. And there you're thinking, oh no, is this going to be like a really sad way for this to go? But no, that was the only shot he missed in that semi-final. He really, really did step up to the point where you're thinking, maybe he should give it one more try next season.
I asked the question in our preview podcast as well about, does he really care about this? And you could tell that he cared a lot.
Yeah.
From his marauding runs to his just demeanor and the willingness to take responsibility at crucial times. There's a couple of really important standing shots, especially in that 7-on-6 situation and in that semi-final where he took control. And to add to it, there was nerves. There was nerves of the like that I actually haven't seen from Mikken Hansen in a really long time. At the start of that semi-final, he missed that penalty. In the middle, there was a couple of turnovers where he was trying to do too much. And I thought it was really great to see that. He cares. He's still human after all.
Yes.
He's not a complete robot. And that's great to see. And again, he's leaving, but it tends to be the case with handball quite a lot where a player can still be, right up at the top of the game, but decides to hang it up just through just a long, difficult, arduous career.
Looking at his contemporary, who's also retiring after the Olympics, in Nikola Karabatic, the relative roles they've had this season for their team and the relative roles they're going to have for the national team, which we'll have plenty of time to get into, are also starkly different. And I think we saw that Hansen has a lot more to offer this summer in Paris, which is quite exciting. And I think Nikolaj Jakobsen, he's not just losing him, he's also going to lose Nicholas Landin. He was probably given a big boost as well to see him be able to do that for this team. Yeah, it's been the Mikken Hansen podcast so far, and rightly so. But shall we start with that? If we're going to go into some details, I mean, we should look at all four teams in some manner. Aalborg, for me, are a great example of a team that were incredibly well prepared for this weekend, and I can't stop waxing lyrical about that defensive performance. Not just in the semi-final, particularly in the semi-final, but over both games, and how well set up and brave they were. And Henrik Mulgaard in that semi-final for me was the performance of
himself.
Yeah, he booked
himself a ticket to the Olympics for sure. I don't think Henrik Mulgaard was definitely on the edge of that squad, but after watching what he did in the semi-final and in the final, there's no way Nikolaj Jakobsen can't bring him. And I fully agree with you. The Aalborg were so prepared. They had so many weapons. They switched into 3-3 or 3-2-1 defense at the right times. It was utilized as a kind of contained precision missile, not just, here we go, this is our tactic. The same with the 7-on-6. And, for years we've talked about 7-on-6 and the hatred for it. And I've always kind of said that people will learn how to use it properly. And it will be an incredible tool in handball, used at the right moments with the right teams. And in this case, for Aalborg, it was used in the last 15 minutes when players get tired, when players are starting to run out of ideas, when, things that are working, like Mads Hoxer just being ridiculous continually, when that slows down, you can just change approach and go with a slightly different tactic. And if you have a player like Hansen in there, it works. And it absolutely worked in the semi-final. And I think it worked in the final as well. It was very close.
The confidence that the players had in themselves at both ends of the court was hyper impressive. And we spoke to Stefan Madsen last week, and he made a real point out of the fact that this was not 2021. It's not a new experience for some players, but in some way for the whole team, it's a brand new experience because they played in front of 1,000 fans or so in 2021. It was a COVID restricted event. They didn't have the whole razzmatazz of the Friday events, which is literally a whole day of commitments and then playing in front of almost 20,000 people. But they absolutely loved it. And players played out of their skin. And that's what I really enjoyed about
Sebastian Barthold.
Oh, like he
out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Not out of nowhere. He's a solid guy, but
for
his
me,
performance.
like 40 minutes into that final, he was top of my power ranking for MVP because he was just doing it all, And he played both Norwegians and the wings. They all had to have a weekend to remember. Fabian Norstein coming in the semi-final, just rocking the show. And back to that semi-final where, speaking of coaching decisions, with Norstein having a 36% save rate and then dipping back into the well and saying, all right, time for Nicholas Landin to come in, who was 0 from 8 before that, who suddenly looked like he was 2 meters 20 tall in that goal for the final minutes. All of it was just like these really, like you mentioned before, really well chosen weapons at the right time, and it was a masterclass in how to manage with what you have, which is a big question mark over the two German teams this weekend, in terms of how they managed with what they had, and so all I can say is, Stefan Madsen, like hats off to you and your whole team. And, there's some jobs out there for him if he wants them.
Is as a team in a black and white jersey going to be looking for a new manager?
If I were them, I know where I'd be looking for him anyway. Yeah, he wasn't. He was right under their noses.
Let's go to Kiel for a little bit. I want to rant. I want to rant a little bit. I love a rant about Kiel. Again, you said it exactly right. They didn't use their weapons correctly. We identified that. And the performance in the semi-final was absolutely embarrassing. Like, that type of semi-final performance should mean that the coach is gone. Someone's gone. Heads have to roll after a performance like that, after a season they've had. Because you can say they've overachieved in the Champions League and reached the Final Four, and that's great. But they clearly showed that just how far off the pace they were, and that it was pretty much luck that they were in with the teams that they played against. And you might say, well, they beat Magdeburg in the third place playoff. Does that not save anything? To me, it's actually the opposite. To think that Kiel in their locker had a performance like that against an absolutely destroyed Magdeburg team. Let's be clear here. Magdeburg were wrecked. That it was a pure battle between Aalborg and Magdeburg in that semi-final, while Kiel Barcelona was just a training match. And we've talked to many players who've said, after that first game in the Final Four, if you win, you're ready to go. You're ready to play a final. Aalborg showed that. If you lose, absolutely everything hurts. You don't want to wake up. You don't want to move. And that's what happened to Magdeburg. But still, Kiel played well. And it shows that they had something. Like, in the right constellation, they could have put up a challenge to Barcelona, but they didn't at the time they needed it most. And it's just really disappointing for the Kiel fans. And my last point is on the skipper. So he had trusted Ellison Shipagotu. He trusted him with the semi-final. But throughout the season, we've seen glimpses, but not enough to like confirm that, this team can work with the skipper and the skipper is ready to take that on and beat Barcelona. There hasn't been enough to show that. He took a risk. It really didn't pay off. And in the third place playoff, skipper played a minor role and Kiel played much better. And I don't blame the skipper too much here because, he's a system player. He is the system. And he has not shown that he's capable of maximizing the skipper as a player. But I will also put some blame on the skipper to say that there's still a lot to go. He's still 21. He's young. He has a really bright career ahead of him. But I think physically, he's just not there. He's not at the level he needs to be. He doesn't have the explosiveness that you need as a smaller playmaker. Like when you look at the way that, Steins or Zarabets play versus Skipagotu, you really like, he just doesn't have that burst to make the space. He makes space through his incredible intelligence, the standing, the passing to the wing, and he exhibited parts of that. But he needs to become more powerful. He needs to probably, pack a bit more muscle, lose a bit of weight, and focus on becoming a powerful player to really unlock his immense potential.
For me in this, it was kind of the clashes make matches kind of thing. The way that Kiel approached the bronze medal game, they knew that if everything went right, as you unpacked after the Montpellier game, that was what they were going for. And once again, that kind of game worked out for them. Big shooters, banging in the goals from long range against a team with a shorter defense, and it worked out. And Magdeburg weren't in the mood to deal with it that day, and that's fine. Whereas against Barca, it was, I think, as we all mentioned in the preview, and Rasmus was very clear about that, they don't have the pace to beat that defense. And then you're trying to make this, Ashipagotu, I think, can't on his own have that speed, but he's the kind of player, if he's getting the ball at speed, if the ball is actually moving at speed and players are moving at speed, then he's able to get the 2 steps in through a defender and worm his way through. But and you could see them really try, like Eric Johansson, they were trying to do it. Harold Rankin was trying to do it, but they could do it for like 3 minutes, and then they were like, no, we're just going to shoot from 12 meters again. And I really understood that was what they attempted to do. It's like they understood this is what they needed, except kind of backing up what you said, they hadn't done it all season long, and you can't expect to not play that way all season and then go, okay, we're going to do it your way, Elias. Like, good luck.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And they all struggled. I think he was doing what he could for the first 5-10 minutes. It was looking okay, but then Barca, started figuring out his bag of tricks. The skip passes out across court. 1 or 2 of those get stolen, and then probably he's told not to do it anymore. And what can you do? And I think it showed also with Eric Johansson with going 1 from 7 in that game. That it all. I'm not blaming anyone in particular in there. It all just like fell apart together in their feeble attempts to mix it up without having the tools to do it.
Few words on Magdeburg before we, of course, go on to Barcelona. We will. Magdeburg may have been slightly figured out now. I think that was clear from the semi-final because we saw, Kielce do it. Rasmus talked about how Kielce were able to kind of shut down their one-on-ones, slow down the game, and Magdeburg will always have the individual quality to, be very, very close, but they're no longer kind of. Yeah, it's almost like they've hit a ceiling with the squad that they have. And that ceiling is extremely high. It's, it's one of the best teams in the world, but not, as I stated, one of the best teams ever, which, it looked like they were going for that. They were accelerating throughout the last 2 seasons and in full control. And I think there is some limitations to this one-on-one style when teams really focus on it. They give them, they beat them up, which is what Kielce did, which is what Aalborg did. And, and there was no Magnussen had a very good performance. He came up trumps, but without someone like Christiansen just having an inspired performance, or Felix Klar just having an inspired performance, or even, maybe it was Mikkel Damgaard's missing piece in this, where
some long
you just need to
shooting.
shoot.
Yeah.
that was missing. And, I think they need to potentially rethink and kind of add an extra level to the team to get that quick shooting into the team when it's needed in those, really, really high level tight matches, which is few and far between.
Never thought I'd hear myself say this, but Philip Weber was on the bench the entire time, and he's someone who is bigger than the rest of them and can take a hit and can take a shot, but they didn't go for it. They stuck to what they thought would work, and fully agreed. It did seem like they were found out a little bit, actually quite a lot in that semi-final, and I'm not gonna dwell on Sunday's game. I'm not sure if that really counts for them, but they need something a little different. Not every team can offer the solutions in defense like Aalborg did and Kielce did, but there's a blueprint there, in terms of not allowing them to, it's all about, as Stefan Madsen said last week, they will never take a shot unless they know that a free throw or a penalty is on the way. Aalborg set themselves up to not allow the pass after the contact, because Henrik Mulgaard was there waving his arms all over them, so the line was never getting the ball, and they were taking them on so far outside of the 6 meter line that penalties were not coming as well, too often. So they need something a little different. I don't know. They haven't signed that player for next season. So
maybe that difference is just Andy Wolf, and that's enough of an edge. If that is their focus, and I think that was in this final weekend. We talked about Sergei Hernandez and his great performance, but he did well, but they could have used a second goalkeeper in this Final Four. Or pretty much a really, really top goalkeeper to really come up trumps. Still, incredible season for Magdeburg. They still got a treble. That's pretty good. And I'm not worried about Magdeburg not being there at the top. But it is interesting to see, most teams have a cycle. Most teams have when they come onto the scene, they break the game, they dominate, and eventually they start getting figured out. And we're seeing potentially the start of that. But, not to say that in any way Magdeburg are not here to stick around.
No, I think a big question is what they can do to adapt and what new stuff they can come back with. And I wouldn't put it beyond them. I think they're very capable of doing a bit more 9 meter shooting practice in preseason and coming back in a different way. Gisley showed it with that winner against Barca back earlier in the season. But they did look like nobody wanted to shoot from 9-10 meters, and that was a big problem. On to the champs. They've done it again, the 5th time in EHF Final Four history, 11th time in EHF Champions League history, 12th time, as they very strongly pointed out with their winners' t-shirts, in club history, winning the elite club competition.
Incredible. And it just comes down to 2 incredible players. One of them's not the MVP of the weekend, Melvin Richardson, who was very incredible. But throughout the season, Dika Mem and Emil Nielsen proved time and time again that they are just operating at a superior plane. And they did that for the whole weekend. Emil Nielsen, with that first semi-final performance, I know we kind of gave Kiel a lot of stick there. What can you do when Emil Nielsen's just completely on fire, and there's no one that has figured out how to get past him when he gets in that zone? And then it was incredibly impressive in the final where he started slower. He didn't catch fire, but when he came back in, he was crucial in Barca getting that win. I just have to love the guy. It's incredible. Like, every time I post anything about Emil Nielsen on Twitter, it just gets the most reaction. I think there's a relatability people have. It's not this 2 meter tall monster who's jumping through the roof. He looks like a regular guy. He is such a nice guy, and I'm so happy for him that, when we talked to him on the podcast, he said he came to Barcelona to win the Champions League. Like, it was always his dream to win the Champions League, and you could tell that was it meant a lot to him.
Yeah, the people's champion. Emil Nielsen.
People's champion.
Yes. And I think when it comes to... I mean, I was personally hoping he'd get the MVP because that's what I'd predicted. But he was kind of his own standards have kind of made it difficult for him there because of the semi-final being so strong. Still at 36% in the final, 42 overall, which on any normal Final Four weekend would be enough. But not this time. And yeah, I think it was just because he was doing well in that first half, but because Landin was doing even better, that they maybe thought they needed to make that change. Then he came in and he was fantastic in the final quarter as well. And I really liked the scenes afterwards. It meant, like, it was clear how much it meant to him, and all the players as well. Like, I think Barca have really this generation of players have really come to understand that these things don't grow on trees. It's not as often as it comes for the club. There's no easy title anymore.
And of course, the other player that has been incredible all year, Dika was just phenomenal in the Final Four weekend. Throughout the season, he scored 107 goals. He was the second top scorer on a ridiculous 70% shooting efficiency. And to think about, like the type of shots he takes, they're not, we always talk about Giesel with his ridiculous shooting percentage, but, he has his own style. Dika somehow is able to be an efficient beast while also taking shots from 9, 10, 11, 12 meters when necessary.
Keel's wet dream.
Yeah, it meant a huge amount to Dika due to the tragic passing of his sister, who died after fighting a kind of long-term illness, and he was really, really kind of, it was an emotional release for him winning this. I think, when you think about grief, a lot of the time, what works for people is to just, focus on work or focus on your game. And, I'm guessing here, but I imagine if this has been going on for a while at this crucial time, that's an approach you're almost forced into. And it felt like kind of achieving the success he's been aiming for was like a way of him releasing kind of broader emotion he may have kept in. And it was a beautiful moment.
Yeah, it's a very likable bunch of people in that team as well, I think it was, due to the fact that it wasn't like an invincible team. They had their potential weak points in the playmaker position, who was exposed at times, but then, Petar Chagusha,
oh my God, in the final. Oh my God. When I was watching Petr Čekusa and I was like, wow, this 18-year-old is really not ready for a Champions League final. He was just, he wasn't there. He wasn't, he couldn't make a stamp on the game. And at a crucial moment with 5 minutes to go, he pops up with an incredible shot, which was so needed at the time. Aalborg were clawing at Barca the whole game. They were like, it was literally grabbing onto the back of the car. It almost felt like the Terminator scene where the Terminator's running after the car, and it's each time like the Barca are throwing something to keep him away. There's hands on the bonnet, but it didn't quite. They didn't quite catch up, and that goal was it's crucial. And I will say it came down to those two Dika incredible goals where Barca's attack was completely slowed down by Aalborg, hand was up, last shot, jump shot from 10 meters over a very large wall. Twice they landed in the back of the net, and that's the difference. That's the game.
Gadouche is all I can say again about
Gadouche. And N'Gusson in that final. Can we just give a shout out to N'Gusson?
Mr. Reliable.
Just Mr. Reliable came absolutely true.
They had so many of those players. I mean, Louis Frad, who didn't touch the ball for the whole game, he gets 2 rebounds and 2 goals from rebounds.
Rebounds were big in the final. There was more that fell to Barca, but there's plenty that also fell to
as
Aalborg.
well. Yeah, that was massive in the second half, and Blaž Jans as well, who always number 2 in that right wing. He just loves Cologne. He's really solid, always.
Yeah.
Victor Thomas, I was talking to him last week in Budapest before, and he's like, yeah, Blaž Jans, if he was a coach, he'd be the first name in his team sheet. He would have him probably playing as a playmaker, though, more than anything else. But just his versatility and just how solid he is. Yeah, good performances.
You have to just give it to Carlos Ortega. Again, he came in with an impossible challenge of continuing Xavi Pascal's success, and he's won 2 out of 3 Champions Leagues in that time, which is absolutely incredible. He figured out the playmaker issues. He had to deal with a team losing Fabregas and Sinrich, 2 superstars, and replace them with Peter Chicusa and Luis Frade, and still won. And I think, a lot of it does come down to the top players maturing, like Dika Mem really showing that he's absolute top dog, like Emil Nielsen stepping into, lead the team, and Melvin Richardson really finding himself in that playmaker position, and that interplay between Mem and Richardson working an absolute treat in the final. And anytime they got any space, anytime they got a runway, they just scored. And I think if you're going to criticize Aalborg in any way, it is the fact that they just weren't able to slow down that massive arcing run, whether it's from Richardson, Mem, or N'Gusson. Anytime they got a runway ahead of them, they just scored. And that was the key. They leaned into their strengths and came out on top.
Great thing from their perspective, and for Carlos Ortega, is that the squad practically stays exactly the same next season. They will have Domin Makwitz at full fitness, hopefully, and everyone again a year older. As I said, people coming to maturity, but not losing any of the big dogs, not having to integrate anyone else. They have the team, and they're just more likely than not going to be a little bit more solid next season. And it's a kind of team which doesn't look like it's going to be found out, because even when they have Dika Mem and Emil Nielsen just to do miraculous things. So hopefully we'll have a chance soon enough to speak to somebody from Barca as well to get a recap from their perspective on the season, on the challenges that we've mentioned, and how they managed to navigate it all to pick up the title. But I think we'll have to leave it there for now, Alex, as I have to run off for dinner in Montreal. Thank you all for listening. A pleasure as always, and we'll be back later in the week as well with a morning club. We shan't forget that. But until then, take care and goodbye.